Hello, I'm Mamuka Kuparadze. Today I will be the anchor of our studio radio discussion, telediscussion. And today we are going to speak about conflicts in Georgia. To be more correct, the ways to settle the conflicts. Today we have NGO representatives here, and together with them we are going to have very interesting and exciting discussion about how dialogue is going on between Georgian Abkhazia and Georgian Ossetian sides, and what we expect the dialogue to bring. So let me present our guests. Goga Jikia, DVV International, Project Manager, Goga Chinchaladze, Project Participant, Verulashvili, NGO, Women's Center Director, NIno Asatashvili, Violence Prevention and Confidence Building between Georgian Abkhazian Professionals, Program Coordinator, and Medea Turashvili, Public Defensor Officer, and in the human rights issue in conflict-injured regions. So it's very nice to have you here in our studio, and before we start asking questions, let me remind the viewers that we are supported by European Union and UN joint project Confidence Building and Early Prevention Mechanism, COBER project. Thank you very much to COBER, and but for international organizations in general, I think we would be too for both physically and communication-wise from our conflict division line, and people living beyond the division line, I mean Abkhazians and Ossetians. So, Georgi, let's start with you. So, you have a very interesting, exciting project, and we are, for the second time, just highlighting it. This is Let's Raise Curtain, an art for peace and stability. You started in September, as far as I remember, when you met with young people in Turkey. So you have just come back from Turkey, as far as I know, and Goga was participant as well. And please let's remind the viewers of your project, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions. Thank you very much for inviting again to your discussion talk show, and our project that was projected by and financed and funded by COBER. We had started in August, a bit earlier, and the project consisted of 2 work meetings. The first one was held in September in Turkey, and participants from Sukhumi and Tbilisi met each other, got together, and second time, a few days ago, it was late April, early May. It was held, as I said, in Turkey. Yes, both conferences were held in Turkey. I think you know about the reasons. I mean, it should have been a neutral country for both sides, from Sukhumi and Tbilisi, to be able to join the collective work. And the project itself, we understand the following way. Confidence building is it's not just at the expense of battling and some brainstorming. No, I mean it implies the art, creative process that should bring about positive results. Conclusive project was staging a theatrical performance. However, at the meetings, so Goga is here as well, project manager, just participant, and they developed the script, and after the first meeting, they just perfected the script through internet and other media, and at the second meeting they directly staged the performance, and they introduced the performance to local visitors. So it was designed and for those who were visitors at the hotel. And so the premiere show was at the hotel. So Goga, you participated. You were an actor, as far as I remember. And please, let's talk about your functions and your role there. Yes, it's just like any other theater performance. And the other 24 participants were actors, and we worked out the scenario. I mean, we worked out and developed some acting skills as well. And we named the performance "All You Need Is Love," and we sent something like a message. Could you translate it into Georgian? Well, of course, "All You Need Is Love" is a song of Beatles. That means that all you need, all one needs is just love. You need just love. And Goga and some other guys, just out of the participants, they sang live, performed live, played live, and so I think it was very nice directorial decision. And so, Georgi and Goga, and please, I'm just addressing the guests of our show. Now we can't afford to see the report, to show the report, due to the, though just we highlight a lot of projects, but you and your partners didn't allow us to highlight. But when will your performance see the daylight? So let me explain the project which we carried out within the framework of Kuparadze's second one. And however, the first experience we gained with our Abkhazian colleagues and peers in terms of the project execution, the very first stage we stated clear that we don't want to be highlighted widely and publicly by the media. It was kind of their request and sort of prerequisite. I mean, project participants, and we simply have to respect and follow this condition. And does it concern the conclusive product? As time goes by, anything may change, but are you going to hold some private shows? Yes, naturally we will, and it will be held in Sukhumi too. It's not only just in Georgia, just as a private, let's say, show, but it will be held in Sukhumi too. And the process is on, by the way. The project is not over and done with. It's going to be finished mid-August, and since late May and up to middle of August, the process is going on. Will be on in Tbilisi and Sukhumi. And of course, Georgian participants can't afford to go to Sukhumi and attend the prime show. Unfortunately, it's reality. So here we have the participants of the project and those just interested stakeholders. And please be just active, be demanding, express your opinions, and in case you add something, we would really appreciate that. And what about your partnership? How did you establish your partnership? So, did they sound like, demanding and closed, so suspicious? So, yes, initially we felt certain tension, but then all barriers actually were off, and it was first time. But the second time, we sort of mixed together, and we didn't feel any alienation towards each other. So it was like one joined, united, just a cohesion group. I mean, the atmosphere that brings you closer to each other. And when you feel a partner in life, you get closer and you feel some attachment and bonds. So had you ever had an experience of playing on stage, acting on stage? Well, I'm a Tbilisi State University student, and I am a member of a theatrical troupe of Tbilisi University theater, and I held some experience. But, well, were any just students from Abkhazia and Armenia who had some experience? Yes, some of them used to dance, and they also had, some of them had certain acting experience, but more or less we all were amateurs. Well, it sounds really good. It's interesting. So, and before we move on with our project, I'd like to ask our journalist NIno Asatashvili just joins the studio and update us with digest which we were provided with Abkhazian Association colleagues. By this I mean that within the framework of our projects, our partners, journalists who live and work in Sukhumi and Skhin Valley, every month they provide us with their news digest, and they just pick up the digest themselves on their own, and I mean things they think would be interesting for us. That's the way we are introducing that. Welcome everybody. Studio traditionally continues to update important news from Abkhazia and South Ossetia. This way we try to fill the information vacuum in Georgian media. And Studio tries to highlight the conditions of people living beyond the division line, claiming that we are shy of information. And then later we will provide you with Abkhazian digest that was specially provided for Studio by our Abkhazian colleagues. Well, as the resort season is closer, President Raul Hajimba just declared a fight against illegal constructions in Pitsunda Musera protected area region. Turned out that a state protected area where no construction is allowed by the autumn season, a few hotels are being built. So the head of the government, together with the inspection, was very angry, and he declared to immediately dismantle all illegal constructions. You know what, I'm surprised, I'm shocked that huge high-ranking officials, head of the administration and local government representatives and environmental service and everyone who is responsible for that, so you solemnly declared about the construction of such constructions. We are guilty, of course, we are at fault, and it's, of course, we illegally started construction. April 24, Sukhumi welcomed the participants of the 102nd anniversary of Armenian genocides in Turkey. This day, millions of Armenians and other emphatic people genocide. Half of the million Armenians became victims of the genocide. Those Armenians living in Sukhumi, many of them are direct descendants of those who fell victims in Turkey. The Abkhazians, indigenous people, they went themselves through Mohajirism, tragedy, violence. They warmly welcomed Armenian refugees, and we all always remember that. And that's when Abkhazian Armenians' history starts. That is now integral part of history of independent Abkhazia. May 9, as in all other former USSR republics, Abkhazia also celebrated the Victory Day in World War II, and in different places concerts and activities were held. The residents of Abkhazia congratulated the veterans on the Memory Day, and they held military parades. Traditionally, immortal military unit was held, and more than 300 descendants of World War veterans participated. Abkhazia sent more than 50,000 people to World War II, and half of them didn't return to their homes. That was News Digest from Abkhazia, from Sukhumi, and we just offered it with no changes, with direct translation. Now let's speak about Tskhinvali. May 20, in South Asia, people will remember the tragedy that happened on Zari Road. Its 25th anniversary. The residents of Abkhazia and governmental members got together with their memorial, and they paid homage to the victims of the tragedy. So they declared the day as a mourn day of the republic. So, according to the media, peaceful citizens, women and children were shot on the way to South Ossetia. Near the border between Georgia and South Ossetia, an organized incident prevention and a reaction just framework. 77th meeting was held that concerned the issue of crossing the border. 2017, 11 cases were registered, and all of the border violators, after due procedures, were driven out of South Ossetian borders. And Georgian media claimed that the citizens were abducted by Ossetians. Donetsk People Republic hosted Anatoly Bibil, president of South Ossetia, and during the visit, Foreign Minister Muradyev of South Ossetia signed the agreement and diplomatic memorandum concerns the opening of diplomatic missions in Tskhinvali and Donetsk People's Republic. The first public school solemnly celebrated the pioneer acceptance activities. It's the 85th anniversary, and the primary schoolers put on neckties as a symbol of becoming members of pioneer organizations. It's not just an organization. This is a lifestyle of children of Soviet Union and descendants of these people. So its mantra is red necktie, and that is be always ready. Within the framework of investment program, road construction is on in the city, and right now 5 roads are being repaired. They are installing some communications and putting asphalt, and 13 roads must be commissioned at the end of the year. And for the second time, South Ossetia celebrated night at the museum. It started May 18 at 12 o'clock, and Mr. Anatoly Bibilov was there too, and schoolers also performed national songs, and they cooked national food and even treated the guests with Ossetian beer. At the end of the activities, they demonstrated the wish beads. So let me remind you that we always offer the digest unchanged. However, just at some case, some views, Studio Rem may disagree with the digest. Thank you, NIno, very much. Now let's get back to our discussion, and let me ask you, Iya, so please tell us about your interesting project. It is violence prevention and confidence building between Abkhazian and Georgian professionals. First of all, and first and foremost, let me heartily thank you for the invitation, and let me thank Hobart for supporting the project. Abkhazian colleagues had asked us to share the problems and the ways our country has gone through just to establish a sustainable firm, and I wouldn't be ashamed to say that unique system of family violence and the inclusion of a referral system into these activities. The project was so important for Cobham that first meeting with Abkhazian colleagues. So here we have the pictures of your meetings. Yes, the photos. And first meeting took place in Yerevan, and we got together in Yerevan, and both, Cobham, Abkhazian, and the Georgian representatives attended the meeting to plan the strategies, how we were supposed to provide the Abkhazians with our experience and knowledge. And the second meeting targeted at those activities that are to be held in case when there are no legislation and norms and regulations. There is no governmental or any other structural support, and In this case, we shared our first and basic function. I mean, of course, and in this case, the main responsibility lies on non-governmental organization. Pointed out of importance of creation of non-governmental organization network, and it should be divided topic-wise organization that would work on identification and medical aspects, online surveys, and first aid issues, and conduct certain studies and research. And we had to provide knowledge about the lobbying. Lobbying should be supposed to be carried on in parallel. I mean, just the decisions must be lobbied through governmental structures in order to adopt those bills. So do you know the results of your sharing? So how did the things develop locally? So did you find out anything at the second meeting? Well, actually, it happened. I mean, those plans were established, plans were formulated at the second meeting, and we provided them with knowledge how they were going to conduct the research. And at the next meeting, I think we are going to get updated. Yes, before the meeting, they had conducted certain studies, but they were not sufficient. So, and therefore, we specially hired a professional trainer who has experienced how to create focus groups to make up questionnaires, and during work groups, we tried jointly made questionnaires. I mean, how the research should be conducted through the population. And it should be noted that we became closer. I mean, journalists became closer. So did you take journalists along as well? Yes, we did, and journalists provided them with information about how news distribution happens, and I mean, what kind of PR campaign should be held, and things like that. That was, of course, relevantly important as well. And we also had representatives of violence, family violence network. I'm an NGO people who explained to them how thematic and topical groups work in this, community, through communities, and what kind of things we could achieve through micro projects. And NGOs shared their modest experience about the functioning of the hotline. We provided them with a model that we had before we introduced and arranged a referral system. For example, there was a small NGO that had just a little shelter for 5-6 people, and how just people would get to this shelter. Yes, of course, sharing experience is really very important, and definitely some contact was established. I would say rather just intense and close contact, and today our guys communicate by Skype, by just online networks, because they work in parallel on several issues. Thank you very much. I'll get back to you. So now I'd like to ask Nino as a coordinator. So, Nino, how did these meetings actually just how were these meetings arranged in both participants from both, Abkhazia and Georgia side? It was first time they participated. So, and through your observations, how did the professional contacts actually just get established? Well, let me tell you something about the first meeting that was very important for the development of next meetings. The first meeting, we simply talked about the plans, about the number of participants, and both Georgians and Abkhazians involved. Certainly, they were provided with certain information that they would have to work with Georgian individuals and share certain knowledge. So, and did that create some kind of, awkwardness, awkward situations? Well, as Ia said, we had representatives. Just about 10 individuals and just about same number from Georgians as well. And in this case, as it was noted, yes, we had certain, closeness in front of TV, media, and the press, but at the end of the workshop, they were just grateful for the training, and it ended well. And we know that in a few months we will have another meeting, and they will be actively involved, and by all means they will arrive in Yerevan. And for the third meeting, you will see the results of this cooperation and the relationships. Regarding the third meeting, it's more large scale. From Georgia, the referral system individuals will be involved, representatives of the hotline survey that own information and work about the psychologists that are involved in shelters in terms of family violence issues and individuals that have certain experience about the existing problems in Georgia, and I think this way for individuals of similar professions, it would be very relevant to share this information. Thank you very much. We will get back to your issue as well. So now let me ask Mrs. Medea Turashvili, who is an experienced participant of civil dialogues. She has participated in a number of projects, and this time, as I said, she represents Public Defender's Office. She is an advisor in conflict-injured regions in terms of human rights protection. And so, Medea, please, let me ask you about the violence. Both sides of the conflict line. What information do you have? So how do you prevent, how do you support, how do you help, what kind of assistance do you offer? Thank you very much for the invitation. Public Defender's mandate naturally extends to the whole territory, whole land of Georgia, according to our constitution and organic legislation. Although Georgia's government is not able to control Abkhazia and South Ossetia, and we as our institution has no direct links in these regions, but still we feel responsible to work on human rights issues, at least look into the conditions in case of addressing. When we are addressed, we are trying to help them. And as for the family violence, generally speaking, family violence or just violence towards women, just to be more specific, because it happens more often. And of course, violence towards children, it's sort of taboo both in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. It was like that in Georgia too, just some time ago, and that's the community is not aware of whether violence takes place in this society, because traditionally both Abkhazians and Ossetians, when you meet, they will tell you that their tradition just respects mother's cult, and what kind of violence. There is no violence. That's what they would say. But however, there were cases when in Abkhazian groups, women, within Abkhazian groups, men and women just would argue because of the fact that they specifically women would claim that there is violence, but men would deny that because, yes, they are not aware of that. Sometimes women may not be aware of that unless there is certain knowledge. Of course, unless we speak about physical violence, unless it is too evident and apparent. But if we speak about mental violence, to a certain extent, lack of knowledge means that both women and men cannot identify the violence. So the way we gain information, we had just ad hoc report that we published some time ago, so in conflict-injured regions concerning rights of women and children. And in the report, we described specific cases on the violation of rights of children and women and cases of violence in certain families. We have contact persons through then we gain our information both in South Asia and Abkhazia. The difference is that in Abkhazia there are more NGOs working in this direction. In South Asia, in fact, actually no one is working on family violence issues. There were a couple of NGOs in Skin Valley, but 2014, due to political pressure, those entities actually declared self-liquidation. There were two strong women entities, but they were liquidated, and as a result, today there is no NGO working on violence issues. There is no any organized institution that would focus on these points. And in terms of Abkhazia, we have a bit better situation, and also because international informations are involved to a higher extent, and local entities are better financed. To execute certain projects, and Gala region is one of the leading, NGOs in Gala region. So these entities are actively highlighting family issues. I think it must be influence of our NGOs and activities just targeted from Georgia. To some extent, probably yes. And in addition, there is a trend in Abkhazia. International organizations are put more emphasis on Gala region, and this is, the decision of present de facto administration. Actually, they personally declared that they have no issues, and most problematic is Gala region, and please go there and work. A lot of entities actually left Sukhumi and concentrated on Gala region, which is, definitely a positive tendency for Gala region, but however, it can't be assessed as positive for Abkhazian region, because, as I said, international organizations are just strongly focused on these issues, especially in conflict-injured areas, because central government is not capable of practicing its power, and local administrations are not very motivated to keep tabs on the violence or human rights issues. Unfortunately, trend is that the number of NGOs and international organizations becomes less and less. I think it's not only due to local, but it's due to Russian policy as well. And the things that we are not able to name our partners, I think this is a direct output. This is caused by these issues. So please, if you have any questions, you're welcome. So I'd like to ask Ian, so after your contacts and meetings with your colleagues, so can you tell us how often do family violence cases occur in these regions, or it's just maybe one or two cases? Well, we get this information from our partners from Abkhazia, and they think that situation is actually very urgent, and that was the reason they addressed us to execute the project. And we enjoy 20-year long experience, and in order for them to settle the project, first comes a referral system recovery, and here just we involved trafficking and family violence prevention crisis center. How they Abkhazians are supposed to create crisis center. How they are supposed to rehabilitate psychologically the victim. And they are supposed to set up similar services locally. So it was said that everybody is working in Gala, but unfortunately the entity with which we cooperate, they wouldn't want to work in Gali. Actually, they cover Sukhumi and all Abkhazian population, ethnic population. So, do we have tension while working? No. Rather, they're quite open. They really want to get maximum information, and they look up to us. What kind of help we could offer. So they are in non-stop permanent contact, and we have non-stop communication with each other, and I assume that after the third meeting where the representatives of referral system from Georgia will be involved, I think that more close ties and links will be established and set up between professionals, between recovery and rehabilitation. The system is a long-term process, and 1 or 2 years definitely is not going to be sufficient for that. So let me conclude that if we work on these issues, and if you just concern the issue just that concern them, they are always friendly, always open, and they try anyway to contribute to the cooperation between us. Thank you very much. Please. Well, a few times I've heard here about private events and activities. So my question is, this event, why are they private? Who is putting those barriers and obstacles? And in your opinion, just how soon these barriers can be off? Please, Georgi. Well, as I mentioned, this request, yes, we did speak about that. This prerequisite would come from the Abkhazian side. This is not our prerequisite. When we even pick up the participants of the project, we publicly declare actually our contest, through job interviews with people we don't know anything about. However, that does not happen in Sukhumi, beyond the division line, because they have themselves certain fears. They are afraid, they are frightened that their local community might not perceive that adequately, and in future the participants may face certain issues. Initially, this tension was more felt and more acute, but those people we have to cooperate with. The situation is, easier, but however, this prerequisite is still on. They wish it not to be publicized and highlighted to the general public. So don't you figure out that there is a third community and not only the local community. Yes, my answer would be very just straightforward. Let's agree that there is a power that looks upon that in a negative way and tries to control. This is what causes the fear I talked about. So, I mean, as a rule, we try not to concentrate on things that, let's say, differ us, but we are trying to put more emphasis on those things we share, the common things, I mean. But however, we do feel that they have certain fear of the sword side. And that's, well, my answer is very simple. It's as simple as that. We can directly say that. We can just say right out that. So do you think all this actual, and do you think that we can just take this third side off how many speech marks? Well, it's more, let's say, it's more broad political issue, but as a platform, I mean, just to be created to let's say, set up the confidence-building platform between us. But when time comes and we are allowed to just face with each other, we shouldn't be any obstacles just in finding a common language. That's what we were working on. But otherwise, actually, of course, we don't have any illusions that one or just this or that way, just we could neutralize this third side. Yes, it's very complicated issue. This is the policy of Russia. We can just say it out loud, but although we really just have this political pressure on us, on them, still there are certain mechanisms, certain instruments, and we do have some certain space. I mean, we meet the professionals of the region. I know Public Defender's Office also just executes certain projects. Yes, we are involved with confidence-building projects as well. And, according to our mandate, we are in touch with those people who are focused on the protection of the human rights. And this is a cycle of Abkhazian-Georgian meetings. We just definitely speak about a variety of topics. From violence towards women to violence to children and environmental issues and human rights in the penitentiary system, minority rights, etc. So where does it occur and what are the models? The models and schemes are identical. It occurs in neutral territory. And our meetings are just two components. One is teaching component, training component. Participants are allowed to get familiar with the experience of other countries in different fields and areas. For example, the last meeting concerned penitentiary system. We were in Budapest in Hungary, and we got ourselves acquainted with penitentiary system along with Abkhazian component. The second component is dialogue component. And after this training component, we reflect on what we have seen, just what could be applied, and what was worth and what is unacceptable about what we do, and in a certain context. And this is in a very good way for Public Defenders Institution to receive information on what conditions are in Abkhazia Association, for them to get information on human rights in the territory controlled by Georgian central government. You didn't mention Association side. Don't they participate? Well, no, at this stage, Association side refuse to participate, and to be frank with you, I can't speak about the reasons. So probably I think I think that's what we mean when we speak about reasons. Well, let me specifically tell you that, all was futile. I mean, actually, we regularly meet our president since 1994. Actually, we are quite close to the end of our program, and please, Nino, let's speak about the monitoring as promised. Last month, we continued the reporting, Abkhazian and South Ossetian reporting and monitoring. In May, we heard distinct support of international organizations. In the United States administration actually declared that any country who would recognize occupied territories of Georgia would be devoid of American support. The European Ministers' Council Committee supported the territorial integrity of Georgia. The document focused on Russia's international and legal responsibility as a country that executes actual control on the occupied territory of Georgia, and therefore the relevant were topics of Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and Georgia media. Very often, terms separatists, puppet regimes, and occupants were used towards Abkhazia Ossetians, but no hate speech incidents in Georgian media towards Abkhazia Ossetians. Georgia media actively just highlighted the cooperation between Abkhazians and Russians, and some information. Russia continues on constructing military towns, military quarters in Abkhazia, and in Sochi, an agreement was signed between Abkhazia and Russia in terms of joint information coordination centers set up between Abkhazia and Russia. According to Rustavi 2, inert materials are being transported, and they started to arrange some infrastructure to transport inert materials from Abkhazia to the Crimea to build the bridge. As for the news beyond the division line, according to public defender, part of Sukhumi, while citizens are in panic, they are worried about the deserted building in the suburbs of the town. After the war, just temporarily Russian soldiers were here stationed, and they used it as a stock for chemical remains and waste. And de facto government is not making a secret of this chemical waste. New Post spreads information about Ilori St. George. I mean, the local parish was not allowed into the church. About 400 meters away from the church, a Russian block post is located there, and according to them, due to repair works and location of soldiers, the movement to church is limited. Our Abkhazian station colleagues point out that both regions actively reacted to international declarations and statements directed at the support of Georgia's territorial integrity. They say that the European Union is getting under influence of Georgia and continues to falsify historical facts. They accuse Georgia of initiation of the conflict, and they don't consider Russia as a side of the conflict. May 20, South Ossetia remembered the Zari Road tragedy, and one more time they condemned the sadism of Georgia. As for Abkhazia, mostly we come across it in the declarations of foreign minister. And for example, Abkhazian Ministry of Foreign Affairs reacted to American administration statement. We are sorry that American administration followed Georgia's requests that are targeted at the international isolation of Abkhazia. America should be aware that such practice encourages the country to adopt discriminating laws. And Abkhazia urges the European Minister Council Committee to refuse Georgian propaganda rhetorics. And Abkhazia puts all responsibility in armed conflicts on Georgia. Abkhazian again expressed concern that Georgian side refuses to sign a non-use of force agreement. That's all. We will keep on monitoring of media, and we will update you with the results next discussion. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you, Nino, very much. We are near the end of our program. Now it's time for a quiz. Let me ask you a question. Let's try to guess it. So, according to Georgian Abkhazian sources in Georgia, one of the preacher of Christianity in Georgia is famous as a Canaanite. Where was he buried? In Abkhazia. We don't know this because it's closed for us away, but for you to know, in Abkhazia, one of the landmarks is a church in the territory of Neo Athens. This is Anacopia Holy Simon Canaanite Church, where Simon the Zealot, Simon the Canaanite, is buried. So it was very nice to have you here. And it was very interesting. The stories you shared, and we do hope that we will see you again in our discussion, and our viewers will be privileged to hear the interesting stories in terms of Georgian Abkhaz and Georgian Ossetian relationships. And we hope that very soon we will see you here again. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.